Hi, it's Dr. C, and today we will be going over how to solve for population standard deviation. So the first thing that I always will advise you to do is to state your givens. So in this case, um, we're just going to have step one, state your givens. We have our data values of 9, 12, 13, 15, and 18. After you state your givens, you need to write out the relevant formulas that are going to assist you in solving the problem. So it does say to find the population standard deviation. So we're essentially going to do standard deviation, which is the square root of the sum of squares over n. Now, um, for sum of squares, we have two ways to solve this. We have the computational formula, which is what we're going to be using today, and then we also have the definitional formula. Okay, so you historically will see this one. I personally think it's way too many steps. So due to that, we're just gonna use the computational formula. The next step is to actually solve for sum of squares. So my advice is to do x, have one column of x, have another column of x squared. So we have each of these data values, and then we're essentially going to square them. So 9 squared is 81, 12 squared is 144, 13 squared is 169, 15 squared is 225, and 18 squared is 324. After we have these columns, we're going to add up each of the columns. So the x column is equal to 67, and the x squared column is equal to 943. All right. After you do that, we're just plugging in the numbers, right? So just to revisit, we have the sum of squares computational formula, which is the sum of x squared minus the sum of x squared divided by n. All right. So we just plug in these values. So the sum of x squared was 943 minus the sum of x, which was 67, squared over 5. After we do that, we pretty much keep going. It's 943 minus 897.8, which essentially gives us a sum of squares of 45.2. Last up, after we solve for the sum of squares, you can plug it into the standard deviation formula. So to remind you, the population standard deviation is the square root of the sum of squares divided by n. So we're just going to plug in these numbers. So it'll be the square root of 45.2 divided by 5, which gives you the square root of 9.04, which essentially gives you a population standard deviation of 3.007. That's me rounding. Now, it does say to round to one more place than the data. The data is no decimal point, so we're just going to add 1. Okay, so if we were to round it, that would give us a population standard deviation of 3.0. Okay, so your answer for this question would be 3.0. I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. My contact button is right underneath this message. Okay, take care.